Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
My day is ruined.
I don't know why.
Take a guess.
Traffic on the way in.
No, it's pretty good. How are you, pal?
Always good.
Good. Well, let's start out with 49 good San Francisco seconds.
No. Welcome back, Christian McCaffrey. That's all the time I need. I think that's obviously the big story. No question about it. Not a fan of these 1 o'clock games. They're always tougher. But
Yeah. Yeah. Who are they playing this week?
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. Okay. It's interesting. You watch Purdy play. You know what I like about Purdy is Purdy has the ability to. I don't think he has the strongest arm going.
No.
Right, but it's strong enough.
Yep.
But he also does a good job with a changeup. You watch Baker Mayfield play. Mayfield doesn't have a changeup, and that's always been his problem as a quarterback on the NFL level. Everything has to be on a line and thrown with velocity. He doesn't know how to pull the string on a ball, right? And the best ones have the ability to do that. I think Mayfield's done a great job at Tampa Bay. He certainly is a talent, but that is something that will always be holding him back. Purdy, on the other hand, I know he's surrounded by great talent, but Purdy has the ability to pull the string. He seems to have the ability to make all the throws. We can question when he really has to thread one in there, and it's got to be thrown with velocity, whether he's good enough to do that. That's can roll the dice on that. Steelers have a very tough one this weekend. They've got Washington, and this has been one of the great stories. Dan Quinn's done a great job with them.
Incredible job.
Daniels has been, look, you're sitting there and you're looking at the quarterback situation in the draft. And Williams is sitting there, and everybody talked about Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams has done some good things this year. But you look at all the other quarterbacks, and everybody's going around. What are we going to do? And Washington, to its credit, said, we're going to take the Heisman Trophy winner. We think he's the best one. And guess what?
Yeah.
He has been the best rookie quarterback to this point. Remember, it's not as if he went to a team that had a lot going for it. They didn't. I mean, there's a reason why they were drafting in the top 10.
Right.
They ended up picking second, but there's a reason they were drafting in the top 10. They weren't good last year. Why do you think Ron Rivera's not coaching? They weren't good last year. This was the biggest change they made overall, with Quinn being next after that. But getting him at quarterback, he's been terrific.
Yeah.
He has played in his rookie season very much like Robert Griffin III played in his rookie season. What derailed RG3 was quite simple. Injuries. Kept getting hurt. That injury against the Ravens derailed him. I think derailed the rest of his career.
I think playing that game against the Seahawks in the playoffs, we shouldn't have been out there in the fourth
quarter. You should not have been out there in the fourth quarter. But again, the Ravens injury is the one that, man. But Daniels has given them spark. He's given them life. He's got their fan base engaged. They're no longer, as a fan base, handcuffed by Daniel Snyder. They've got John Harris now as the owner of the team. This is going to be a tough game for the Steelers coming up. And it's going to be a tough stretch because the Steelers are the one team in the AFC North that is yet to play an AFC North game. Last night's game, Baltimore and Cincinnati. Al Michaels, I think, summed it up perfectly at the end. And by the way, I was all for Cincinnati going for 2.
Yeah, same.
I was all
same.
for it.
We weren't stopping.
Right.
More in the fourth.
And again, that's you evolve over time as to what your thinking is with this stuff. To be honest with you, I kind of felt last week if Penn State had scored in the fourth quarter against Ohio State, I would have been inclined to go for 2. That would have been me. I know there's 5 minutes left, but I'd have thought about it.
Monday Night Football ought to go on for 2.
Right.
The Buccaneers should have gone for 2.
Yes. But Cincinnati goes for 2, and on the play, there's penalties all over the place on that play, and nothing's called. And Al Michaels said, quote, "Too many games have ended this way this season." He's right. And that's across the board in college football, in pro football. I realize that the athletes today are bigger, stronger, faster. So the game is fast. I'm not a proponent of putting more officials out there because at some point there has to be a limit as to how many you have out there. But there's too much stuff going on out there. And my biggest issue is, and this is something they can't change. All right? Teams aren't playing their players in the preseason.
Right.
And because they're not playing their players, what does that have to do with now and the end of games and things like that? That has a lot to do with it. Because if you're playing your players in the preseason, you can call all the penalties you want and it won't matter in the outcome, but you're sending a message as to how the game is going to be called during the season. Right?
Absolutely.
And I think that has become an issue. It doesn't matter if we're not playing and they call all these penalties on the guys that didn't make the team. And the player's like, they're not going to penalize me for it. I'm fine. Well, if you're actually the one getting penalized for it, and because they don't play players in the preseason any longer that are going to be playing in the games, you are now having to do it during the season. It's ruining the product. And then you're getting to the point where people are missing stuff because everybody's committing penalties on the field. I mean, it's. I don't want to delve too much into last Saturday's game. I don't. But the tape will reveal left and right the clutch and grab in the secondaries, the clutch and grab at the line of scrimmage, things like that, that played a role in how certain things played out in the game. Look, I'm not taking any credit away from anybody. I'm just look at the tape. You can see it, right? And I'm not sitting there go, no. I'm just saying, I can see it. That's all. It was just like a blanket. And when you watch the tapes of Ohio State anyway, they've always been a clutch and grab group. Not to Michigan when Don Brown was there, because their philosophy was quite simple. Can't call them all. Or in this case, none.
Yeah, none at all. Yeah.
Right. So let's put that aside. All right. Whether it had anything to do with outcome or not, I have no idea. But the officiating has got to be better somehow, some way. How, I don't know. I don't think there are enough officials out there that have great feels for the game. They understand the mechanics of officiating, right? But it's like the wide receiver that understands the mechanics of the route. I go down 9 yards, I make a left. Okay. But what makes the play effective? When it becomes instinctive and they go, hey, I'm not even thinking about it. I know what the depth is supposed to be, and I know where to gauge it. Boom, I'm going to cut it. There it goes, right? That allows the play to have flow. The officials don't have flow on every level right now because I don't think you have enough officials out there to have great instincts, right? And it's and you look at the end of last night's game, holy mackerel. I mean, how about the one where Burrow went back and got slapped in the head?
Yeah.
Right? No call. No call. He's the quarterback and he gets slapped in the head. Come on. That wasn't exactly subtle. And it wasn't deliberate. Okay, so you know, it was not deliberate in any way, shape, or form. Because most of this stuff, when stuff like that happens, it's not deliberate. It's just I got hit. I come out. You can't hit him, right? Inadvertent or not. And I had no dog in the hunt. I wasn't rooting for any team last night. I was just watching the game just to enjoy a game. But you get down to that and the drama, I'll be like, oh, no, brother. Gesicki got mauled on the final play. Like, the ball was not thrown to him, but he took a beating. It was, wow. I'm going to give you now the underrated game of the week in college football. Very underrated. Let's see, test your knowledge out here.
Underrated game of college football?
Mm-hmm. Very underrated, extremely under the radar.
Well, I can't say Indiana, Michigan because it's on a network.
Division 3.
Division 3.
Mount Union is taking on Marietta. Marietta is 8-0. If Marietta were to shock Mount Union, which has been the power of all powers in Division 3, they would be 9-0 for the first time since 1906.
Nice.
You have no idea where the teams are. All right, so
I know where the teams are. I did not would not have guessed that game whatsoever.
Do you follow college football?
I do.
I'm just kidding. Nobody knows about this game. Nobody knows about this game. I'm just kidding. I'm just having fun with you, right? But it's like at every level there's something going on,
right?
And football is so much fun. I mean, you've got a playoff game tonight. Cooper Cousins, by the way, wanted me to send a message to Erie McDowell. He says, we'll beat State College.
Is that right?
No, and Cooper told me that. He told me straight out. I talked to him on Wednesday.
Well, if he said that last year prior to the game, he would have been right.
Well, he played in the league last year.
Yeah.
That is, I'll tell you right now, that is one heck of a young offensive lineman right there.
Yeah.
He is really good.
And, yeah, McDowell is a team that is, I'll tell you, they are one that is not ever to be taken lightly. You go back, was it 2 years ago, Memorial Field playoffs, probably one of the greatest games I ever called. The triple overtime game where McDowell fumbled inside the 10-yard line, overtime. State High wins, advances to North Allegheny. Yeah. Well, to State High again, obviously hosted North Allegheny. But, yeah, that was one of the greater games I ever called. I go back many years ago. Yeah, State High played McDowell for the first time in a long time. Alex Kenny was hampered with an injury.
Remember.
Lucas Yoakum takes a fumble recovery back in a 9-7 game. They win at 16-7. And there's just a lot of games between these two teams were classics.
How's attendance been at home?
Been good. Yeah, last week especially. And the other part of it is the away team is traveling well. I think McDevitt obviously traveled real well. I was surprised how well Carlisle traveled. I thought for a team that was winless, and they were, and they still are. It's still like it's over for them, but absolutely traveled pretty well, which was surprising. Yeah, attendance has not been bad. It'll be interesting in the playoffs because you're not really getting that reserved seating. You're going to have to get your online tickets. So we'll see how it's going to be. Obviously, the streaming that everybody has nowadays.
And it's 4 hours from here.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other part of it. So I think it'll be interesting. But and even same goes for next week when whoever plays Williamsport or Wilkes-Barre, whether it's McDowell or State College. So I think it's...
Is it Wilkes-Barre or GAR, or who is it?
I think they've all become one now.
Become one now, so just Wilkes-Barre now?
I think it is Wilkes-Barre now. Yeah, no Coughlin, GAR, or Myers that I know of anymore.
Bummer, because back when the first 2 years I was at Penn State, I was at Penn State Wilkes-Barre, which is out in Lehman. It's in the back mountain area. But look, I followed all that stuff. Coughlin, Myers, GAR, Dallas, Lehman.
First time I ever saw
Channel 16 in Scranton. Wilkes-Barre had the Super 16, which was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
Grew up with the Super 16.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, grew up in Eastern Pennsylvania, no doubt. And that's the first time my alma mater ever played on artificial turf when they played Coughlin. Yeah. That I could remember, as long as I was watching them play.
The only time we ever played on it was at Fitch High School in New London, Connecticut. Like, oh, wow, hey. Like, hey. And not only that, we were under the lights. Whoa. That was a big, we felt like we were on Monday Night Football. Nice. Like, hey, this is great. Because now when you were there, was Jim Coles the anchor?
Yes. Yeah, Coles was.
Colesy and I are like that.
Coles was.
We went to Penn State. We went to Penn State together.
Nice.
When I was at WDFM here on the University Park campus, we're up in the Sparks building. And Jim and I, every Saturday, would do the college, even if I was doing the play-by-play of the game, would do the college football scoreboard together. We were the co-anchors of it. He's one of the greatest guys on the planet.
Absolutely awesome.
Great guy.
He's a long-time sports director there.
God,
long time before he retired. One of the absolute. No,
Colsey is
one of the absolute best.
Colsey's great.
And a lot of people under his wing. Charlotte McBride was one. She's now in Washington D.C. area.
Yeah.
She was under his wing for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, basketball tonight, Penn State, UMBC. Jim Ferry makes his return to the Bryce Jordan Center. Jim did a great job as the offensive coordinator under Pat Chambers. And I thought did a phenomenal job as the interim head coach with everything that was going on here at the time of keeping that team together and keeping it competitive. Jim did a tremendous job. He's an excellent coach. Banks is a really good player for them. This guy can score. And that it's not just what they did in the Penn State York is one thing, but like Banks was a scorer for them last year too. Penn State coming off a terrific 108-66 win. You know what I really liked is that you're up on a team and you're routing them. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a couple of guys take what I refer to as the happy on the farm shots. Hey, I'm going to get mine. It's not going to hurt us. You just, quote, jack up a shot. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that one time in the game on Monday. Not one time did they do that. They just ran what they were supposed to run. That's one of those under-the-radar, subtle things that tells me a lot about this team. Right? And it's just by being around the game as long as I've been around the game. There have been too many times where I've seen the happy on the farm shot, happy on the farm shot, happy on the farm shot, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, well, wait a minute, they're closing the gap now. And now you're out of sync offensively because of it. And then things start to go, wait a minute. They never once deviated from the offense. Never. And in a game where they've got it well in hand, there was nobody out there saying they, quote, had to get theirs. And that impressed me beyond words. So they'll play tonight 6 o'clock. Dick and I will be on at 5:30. Now, this works out great because I'll be able to go over football, Fast Fridays, 3:30 or 4:20, whatever. Just slide over. It'll be all good. Right? And then they have St. Francis on Military Appreciation Night on Tuesday at 7. The Lady Lions won easily over Canisius last night, so they're 2-0. They've got Duquesne, I want to say Sunday, and that's their Military Appreciation game. I think it's Sunday.
I think it is.
All right, so we got that coming up. Now tomorrow.
Yeah, it is Sunday. Yep.
Now tomorrow, I'll be talking in a few moments with Tony Caltricone, the play-by-play voice of Washington football. It's a good team. Just no getting around. They are a good team. I think Jed Fish, I've got to give he and his staff a lot of credit. Kalen DeBoer takes them to the national championship game. They lose a tough one to Michigan. He then takes the Alabama job. But also in the process, they graduated almost all of their starters. And Jed Fish was able to come in and in a short period of time get everything back on track. He had to piece a lot of things together. The quarterback, Will Rogers, the transfer from Mississippi State, good thrower of the football. And Denzel Boston, not only is a good receiver, but Jason, he's a big receiver.
Big receiver.
He's 6'4".
Yeah.
Latu, the tight end, is a big target that's become dependable. And Jonah Coleman, Jack and I have talked about Jonah Coleman a few times on the broadcast, in the pregame show usually, because we're talking about other teams. Maybe for the last 6 weeks or whatever. He is not big in stature, but he is built like a bowling ball. Right? From point A to point B, he is one tough running back. Many times he does not go down on first contact. Now I'm going to get into a little bit more. I'll get into a little bit more with him right now. Iowa did a great job of making him try to go left or right. He is not a running back that has what the draft people would call a lot of wiggle. In other words, he's point A, point B. If you getting him trying to go a little bit side to side, he does get thrown off his game. Right? And Iowa did a good job of that against him. Rodgers likes to, boom, because you can tell he's from the air raid system with Mike Leach. What in the air raid, what do you like to do as a quarterback? Take balls, see receiver, throw ball. Okay? Right? First read means a lot. The offensive line for Washington has been like this year. Some days not bad. Some days like, uh-oh. Right? And Rodgers is not a guy that moves well off the spot. Damon Williams, who was the future of Washington football at quarterback, they'll spot him a play here and a play there. What was interesting against USC, though, is they brought him in a few times, and not one time did they run him. Like, okay, that's interesting. Defensively, Bruner's a special player. And you want to know how tough this kid is? He separated his shoulder against Washington State and has kept playing. And he also I don't know how he is with his knee, because at the end of in the fourth quarter of the USC game, kind of went up in such a way and came down in such a way, like what happened to him? But he is, you know how I always talk about, you have great athletes playing a sport, but there are certain people made for a sport. Larry Bird was made to be a basketball player.
100%.
Right? I kind of feel Magic Johnson was too. He was made to be a basketball player. Bruner's a football player. Terrific instincts. And his family is Mark Bruner played for the Steelers.
Yep, sure.
They have, along the way, adopted some children. They have fostered. They've been a foster home for children. I mean, you want to talk about a family that's given back? That's the Bruners. They've been great. And their secondary is pretty good. But what they do a lot of in their secondary is they drop a lot of people. And doesn't mean there aren't holes. You can make plays against them. But this is why I think Miller Moss is not going to start. Maeva is going to start this week for USC. The value, and you've heard, I don't know, probably didn't hear the interview I did with Brad Nessler, because, you don't like to hear the best in the business. Just the way you are. Do you try at the job? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding him.
Brad, one of the best things I remember, Brad, was Dan Connor had obviously the big game in Ann Arbor, the game they lost when Ryan Mallett was quarterback at Michigan.
Yeah, right.
And he probably had 14, 15 tackles.
Yeah.
They honored him player of the game on ABC, and then Dan Connor, 8 tackles. Right. He said, I'm telling you right now, the guy keeping that stats from Michigan.
Yeah. Brad and I were talking about how important it is in our jobs, because I'd said, Brad, you just saw Oregon. When you see them in person as opposed to seeing them on a video, what are you seeing? He says, Steve, you and I are the same. He says, it's all about what we see, because it's a different viewpoint with your eyes when you see it in person. And that's, when I look at them, Moss, when I finally saw Moss play in person, you know what my eyes told me? He doesn't see the field that well.
No, he doesn't.
Right? And with those 4 receivers, Deuce Robinson, Hudson, Branch, Lane, plus the tight end, McCree's pretty good. Plus the running back, Woody Marks.
Yeah.
Well, but Marks is a really good receiver. I mean, Marks is a really good receiver out of the backfield. I'm watching the Washington game, and again, you can't see the wide of the field. And he's, look. And I was like, wow, the coverage must be great downfield. And somebody said to me, I was watching, I think my son, said, the coverage must be great downfield. I said, no, I don't think you can see the field. Right? And that's one of the issues I think he had last week. And what was interesting is that when USC made the decision in the second half to run the ball, They ran the ball, and they got back in the game and took the lead running the ball. Now, let's give Washington credit. They had a goal line stand last week.
Mm-hmm.
And Grady Gross, their place kicker, who got off to a very slow start, I mean, very slow, up and down, has steadied himself the last few games and has become the Grady Gross you saw for the most part last year. Has become more dependable and reliable. Early in the season, he struggled. But to his credit, he broke out of that slump, and he's kicking pretty well right now. Good team. Good team, well coached. Right? Jed Fish has been 5,000 places. I mean, you name the place.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? He's kind of like the Larry Brown of college coaches. All right. I mean, he's been in the pros. He's been in the... And there's a lot of pro influence in this offense, by the way. So, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And I saw you at the game last week. That ruined it.
There were quite a few pro. That was the most I have ever seen, I think, pro scout-wise at a game. There were quite a few.
There are a lot of pros, future pros out
absolutely.
there.
Yeah, there were probably 30 there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scouts?
Yeah.
There are a lot of future pros out there on the field.
That was literally the most I think I've seen in my time.
But look, you got to, okay, this is, we always talk about the want to know stuff. They want to know, the immature.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an immaturity when people mock it.
Absolutely.
And you sit there and go, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
All right?
Agree.
If you're the team, do you want them to pick a team later in the schedule? Like, they're not practicing and playing them this week.
Right.
They're playing that team.
Mm-hmm.
How would you like them to approach it?
Right.
Why do you get mad at a coach by saying, hey, look, it's one to know it's all about Washington? Because guess what? That's all it is about this week. The whiteout part is so cool. Penn State fans on a normal Saturday are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
This whiteout thing is just at a totally different level.
Yeah, agreed.
It's really cool.
It is.
It's one of the many reasons why it's just so cool to see certain things in my career that have evolved into seeing 111,000 in that stadium for the first time ever. 111.30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The whiteouts, the influence of the crowd, the parking lots, the tailgating. I mean, everything that goes with it. It's really phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's why, I don't care which game it is. I know I've done a lot of big games in my career. Okay, so I've been so fortunate to do that. But that's why every game, it doesn't matter when I walk in, I can't wait to be there. I couldn't wait to be there for Kent State.
Right.
Now, did I expect Penn State to win easily? Yeah, deep down, of course I did. But I couldn't wait to be there. Well, now you get to a game like this, tomorrow night, lights on, white out, crowd going crazy, loud, screaming, the whole deal, getting hoarse, knowing they don't have to do this in the stadium again until the end of the month, right? So you can just go out there and have a big vocal blowout, right? It's incredible to sit there in that booth and look around and see it all. It's just very, very, it's one of the 1,000 reasons that makes this place special.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't know if it's going to appear in there or not, but the Penn Stater magazine that they put out with the Alumni Association, they asked me, my favorite place on campus, and of course I picked the broadcast booth, right?
Sure.
And when you have a chance to see the greatest players in college, and that's both teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? In other words, over the years, there have been a lot of great opposing players, great Penn State players, but also some great opposing players. You need great players on both sides. Being in atmospheres like that, working with the people I work with, Roger, Bob, Brian, Jack, of course, Dick Girardi on basketball. This is the coolest place on the face of the earth to be. And by the way, I want to congratulate a guy that has been acquaintance, friend over the years, Bob Kessling. Bob Kessling of Tennessee, who succeeded the legendary John Ward and then put together his own legendary career. Bob's going to be retiring at the end of the basketball season. He made the announcement yesterday that he was going to retire. 26 years as the play-by-play voice of Tennessee football. And maybe a little longer with basketball. And one of my favorite Bob stories was an Outback Bowl. And on the Outback Bowl, he comes into the booth. There's plexiglass between the booths at Raymond James Stadium where the Buccaneers play. So Roger looks over into their booth. He goes, he's counting. They got 14 people over there. Now, at this point, we didn't have a sideline person, so we had 4.
4, right.
It's like at that point, it wasn't Bob, but we had Roger, Jeff Tarman, right, Jack, and, of course, me. That's it. Roger's like, he says, I'm going to go over and investigate. Okay. So, I'm standing there like, hey, go knock yourself out. I don't care how many people they have over there. He goes back. He says, you won't believe it. They've got 2 engineers. I got a guy on the sideline that's a producer. The sideline guy's there. They got an audio guy on the sideline. He says, and the play-by-play guy has a spotter for Tennessee, a spotter for Penn State, and a spotter for the officials. And a spotter for the officials.
That I've never seen.
No, I'm just telling you what Roger told me. I didn't go over and ask. I mean, I pretty much
I've seen at most.
I pretty much took Roger's
2 to 3 spotters are the most I've seen.
All right, so 3, right? And this again, I didn't. So Bob comes over, and Bob says he's just want to exchange some notes before the game. Sure, right. And the first thing he says now, look, Steve, I hope you don't get mad at your spotters because we're all wearing our white jerseys, stay with the orange numerals. They can be a little difficult to see. And Jack slaps me in the back and he says, you're looking at them. And Bob looks at me and goes, you spot your own game? I said, well, Bob, I can confidently say all the mistakes are mine. So he is a great guy. The years I've run into him on basketball, the years I've run into him on football, Bob Kessling is a great guy who had a great career and succeeded one of the truly legendary voices of Southern football in John Ward. Yeah, I mean, that's phenomenal. When you think of all that, it's really, so congratulations to Bob. I mean, I know he's going to finish out this year and finish out basketball, but he's one of the best. And he says, hey, look, you don't really know when it's the right time. It just kind of felt like, okay, hey, I feel like I'm doing pretty well right now. He says, I don't know if I could go another 5 years, so I'm going to, good for him. When are you going to retire?
For a lot of people here, it seems like they're trying to throw their retirement party early. I don't know.
Just give me a date.
Probably in my grave, one of the 2.
Oh, we gotta wait that long. Oh.
Just because they're already driving the moving trucks out here, I figured I'd say that.
Well, people have been very kind about what they've said to me about. You're gonna keep going, right? I said, yeah. I'm having too much fun. I'm having way.
They're lucky to have you.
Oh, I don't know about that.
They are lucky to have you.
I don't know about that. They sit there going, "Oh God, that guy! So. Oh, that guy!" So, I've had one rocking good time. I can tell you that in everything I've done. And it's like even in the games where it doesn't go well, you still had you do get invested in it. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
So we have Tony here. So we have.
I believe so.
Tony Calcatrone, the last time Penn State played Washington, the legendary Bob Rondo was their play-by-play guy. In fact, I think it may have been Bob's last game. And Bob still stays in touch with me, by the way. You know, the last time Bob and I were in contact with each other was actually last month, the USC game. You know, we exchanged texts back and forth, and then he called me a year ago. There's something. His wife's a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I was able to get him in touch with Jack to get a signed jersey for Christmas for the Rondos. All right, you know, and Jack was great about it. He's like, "Oh, guy, yeah, you know." Right. Well, Tony replaced Bob and has put together his own legendary calls, you know, especially all the ones that led up to Washington playing for the national title last year. So Tony's done a great job of carving out his own after stepping and filling the shoes of Bob Rondo, the way Bob Kessling, you know, carved out his own legacy after filling the immense shoes of John Ward. Yeah, so it's cool. We get a chance to talk to Tony here.
Nice.
You can hit the button.
All right.